Every so often in the NBA, you have superstars make comments on various players in the league, or give their thoughts on other teams, whether it be negative or praising said teams or players. And often when this happens, mainly when a superstar praises a given player for their talent or upcoming potential, the media and fans react and read into what this could potentially mean for said superstar who made these comments, that they somehow now have the desire to join the player which they are praising. Now, that probably sounded a little confusing, and I think most of you probably know what I'm referring to, and that is the comments that Kevin Durant made in a recent podcast regarding Zach Lavine and Vucevic and the Bulls. And it was actually in a positive light, really praising Zach Lavine and giving him credit and giving credit to the Bulls for bringing in Vucevic. And because a lot of you have asked what are my thoughts on these comments from Kevin Durant, as well as just the general reactions that I've seen from Bulls fans on Twitter and other social platforms, I figured I would address this in today's video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Before I get into the video, every so often, I get comments on my videos that I would say probably once or twice a week. Hey, can you start sharing more recent highlight footage or footage of the game that you're talking about in the video? A lot of the highlight footage that you have in your videos are generally the same. And none of the comments have been rude. They've actually just been genuinely curious questions. And rather than me always responding to the comments individually with the same answer that I currently do, I figured I would just mention that here. Now, I'm sure some of you might know this, but the NBA is pretty strict in what they'll allow for their game footage to be used on other online platforms. They used to not be as strict, but ever since the pandemic and the fact that the league has lost a lot of money, they've started cracking down on this a bit more. So you've probably noticed most of the footage I use is generally older highlight reels from last season or even the season before that, and that's because most newer footage is generally copyright protected by the NBA. And you have to have a license or consent from the NBA to use such content, which I don't have because my channel is pretty small and my requests for those kind of licenses often get denied. On top of that, I also received a copyright strike for a video that I made around the time that I started this channel, and you only get 3 strikes on YouTube before your channel is subject to be banned, which I obviously don't want to happen. But in any event, that's why you generally see the same highlight footage in my videos, but really this channel is more for dialogue anyway, and not for the video and visual effects. I just figured people would rather at least watch some basketball highlights while I talk, rather than just a still image or seeing me talk personally. But let me know if you guys think otherwise, as I'm always open to feedback and how I can make the channel better. Keep in mind, I do this channel as a side thing because it's a passion of mine and I enjoy doing it. So unless this becomes a full-time job for me, which would be amazing if it ever did, I likely won't be doing any crazy editing, special effects, or transitions when it comes to visuals or the content that you might see from, say, full-time YouTubers, because I really focus more on the dialogue and the analysis for this channel, as, I really don't have the time to actually focus more on the actual visual aspects of it. But anyway, enough rambling about that. I know you guys are here for the content and the topic at hand, and that's about Kevin Durant and his recent comments from his podcast, The ETCs, which aired on Friday. And when asked what he thought about the Bulls and the pair of all-stars in Lavine and Vucevic, this is what he had to say.
Vooch is nice too, like you said. Vooch is nice. You think that's a good pairing to kind of get a foundation set up with?
Yeah. What you think?
Zach is like, as pretty as Kyrie's game is, Zach is kind of like that.
Yes,
his game
man.
is that version of like the 6'8" guy. Like his game is ridiculous.
Bro, when you got guys like them three, because them two, I'm sorry. I mean, shit, I want to throw Coby White in there too.
Coby is nice.
Because I feel like he a part of their future. Like he going to be the guy. That's the point. And you got 3 guys that can get it from 3 levels on the court. I don't give a fuck. What else you got? You got something with that. That 2 all-stars at that. Another guy who a wild card right now, but can go off crazy and get you 30, any given night. When you got that on your team, that's a great start.
Now, this is on top of the comments Kevin Durant made last summer when he stated he believes Zach Lavine has superstar potential. Now, these are confirmed and verified comments and recordings from Kevin Durant, so it's not fake news or sources, so it's fair to say that Durant has a very high opinion of the Chicago Bulls and the core that we have. But of course, Twitter exploded after these sound bites were released, and you had so many Bulls fans and non-Bulls fans actually coming out and stating, Kevin Durant is coming to Chicago, he wants to play with Lavine and Vucevic, it's a wrap, Bulls are going to be title contenders again. And what I have to say is, no, No, this is not what these comments mean. First of all, Kevin Durant is under contract until 2022, and he has a player option in 2022 and 23 that is worth $42.7 million. So it's unlikely he's going to decline that player option unless the Nets absolutely bomb and end up going nowhere with their super team. Kevin Durant, as great as he is, he's not that young. He'll be 34 by the time his contract expires if he exercises his player option, which, don't get me wrong, for a player of his caliber, he's likely still going to have some great years left in the tank even at that age. But he has also had some serious injuries in his career thus far that you have to keep in mind. But even all that aside, guys, Kevin Durant isn't coming to Chicago. Him making these comments doesn't mean anything more than, just a superstar talking about some great players in the league. He's not going to want to come play with the Bulls, not when he has a super team in Brooklyn. Superstars, not even just superstars, players in general make comments like this from time to time about what they like seeing in other players in the NBA, acknowledging and recognizing other players' talents, giving them credit, showing them respect, whatever you want to call it. This happens all the time in the NBA, and it rarely, and I mean rarely, doesn't mean that said player is making comments about another player, and then it's shortly followed up by them teaming up together afterwards. Do you know how many times Kobe Bryant has praised throughout his career other players and then never once teamed up with them? Shaq, same thing. Tim Duncan. Michael Jordan, maybe not so much. He had a hard time praising other players, but it does not at all mean that they're looking to leave their team to join up with the guys on the team that they're giving recognition to. So all of this hype of Kevin Durant wants to come to Chicago to play with Lavine and Vucevic from Bulls fans, which I know it isn't a lot of Bulls fans. I think most fans can recognize this is just a superstar giving a player his due. But for those that are reading into Durant's comments and interpreting it in that way, you need to take a step back and realize that it's not what is going to happen. And I know some of you might think, well, come on, man, you're a Bulls fan. Have some faith. Why are you so negative? No, I'm not being negative. I'm being realistic here. I mean, if there is one thing that I pride myself on with this channel is that I try and be as practical and objective as possible when it comes to the Bulls. Of course, I'm going to have my biases like any fan of the NBA, and I'm going to be biased towards my own team. But at the same time, I also understand what is practical in the NBA. And by a player making these type of comments who currently plays on a super team, there is nothing more to read into it other than him giving the Bulls, mainly Zach Lavine, some props and respect for what they have put together and the budding talent that they have. Now, what it does mean for the Bulls, though, is that anytime you're getting praise, acknowledgement from one of the best players in the league, a future Hall of Famer, it's generally a sign that you're doing something right. And it makes recruiting other star talent that much easier. I can't really actually even remember the last time a superstar level talent was singing the Bulls' praises in terms of what they had on their roster. So that in and of itself is noteworthy and enables the Bulls to feed off these comments when going into free agency. Because look, there's no question that Lavine and Vucevic can be a deadly combo together in the pick and roll and pick and pop. Now, they're still figuring things out as of right now. They just became teammates all but 2 weeks ago and haven't even had a proper offseason or a training camp or even just general practicing together, given the Bulls have had a very compacted schedule of games since the deadline. But once these two start clicking on offense, yeah, these two are going to be a deadly duo. It doesn't take a scout or a talent analyst to recognize that. And that's why Kevin Durant's reaction when asked about these two players was, well, yeah, no shit. They're going to be a deadly duo. Durant did also say that he would throw Coby into that mix in being the Bulls' starting point guard for the future, which, yeah, I disagree with that assessment. I'm not saying Coby can't be a great player in this league. I do still believe he has a lot of potential despite a lot of the frustration that has come from Coby recently with his overall play on defense and his lack of playmaking ability to be our lead point guard and floor general like the coaching staff was hoping him to be. But I do think Coby, only being in his second season in the league, he still has a lot of development and growth left to go. I just don't think he fits with the Bulls team long term because he is better positioned as a two guard, which obviously the Bulls are already covered at in Zach Lavine. And that's the one thing that I've noticed from Bulls fans after these comments from Kevin Durant is that since Durant says Coby is a part of the Bulls' young core and has a lot of potential, that all of a sudden Coby is a perfect fit for this team and that the Bulls should build around him. And again, all because of the comments from Kevin Durant, as if KD is somehow an expert in assessing talent and fit on a roster for a basketball team. Obviously, he knows the game very well, considering he's a superstar level talent who has been in the league for over 14 years now, but it doesn't qualify him to be a GM or a coach that understands the dynamics of a roster and how it's constructed. Now, I know the other reason people have been saying this is an indication that Kevin Durant may want to come to Chicago is because there is also a Billy Donovan connection, and that Donovan coached Kevin Durant in his last year at OKC before he bounced to join a 73-9 team because he couldn't beat them himself. But I really don't see that being a factor at all in KD wanting to come to Chicago. Billy Donovan coached KD for one season, and mind you, he left the team after he was unhappy when they blew a 3-1 lead in the Western Conference Finals to the Golden State Warriors. And at least from what I've seen or heard anyway, there have never been talks or reports of a great relationship or fondness and respect for each other between Kevin Durant and Billy Donovan. Not that there was disdain or issues that were ever reported between them either, but nothing like the respect and admiration that you've heard between Billy Donovan and, say, Chris Paul or even Russell Westbrook. So I don't see that connection of Billy Donovan and Kevin Durant being relevant at all when it comes to the Bulls claiming that this is an indication that Kevin Durant is going to come to Chicago. So as I mentioned, Kevin Durant making these comments on Zach Lavine and Vucevic and the Bulls really means nothing more than a superstar making some passing comments when asked about a pair of players and showing some respect and appreciation for their talent. It is great in the sense that it gives the Bulls some recognition and exposure when it comes to attracting other free agents, as other players do take note of these kind of things, as KD has said. But guys, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden Kevin Durant has interest in coming to Chicago to play with Lavine or to come play for Billy Donovan because he played with him over, for one season over 5 years ago. I get it. As Bulls fans, it's easy to get excited about these kind of things just because the Bulls have really been the laughingstock of the league the past few seasons, and things are finally starting to trend upwards. And it's not often when you have a superstar praising players on your team. But let's not read into the comments anything more than what it is. It doesn't mean Kevin Durant is coming to Chicago. Let me know what you guys think, though. What are your thoughts on Kevin Durant's comments from this recent podcast? Do you think I'm downplaying this a bit? Do you think it means something or nothing? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget, the Bulls will be taking on the Timberwolves this evening. I'll have a live game chat for that on the channel and in the Discord. Be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.